my name is Jamal Ibrahim. I'm stepping in for Adam Al-Hireka. I'm chairing this session on financing industrialization in Africa. I was supposed to have 5 papers. I read Dr. Begna. So I think we are behind schedule. So unfortunately, I need to cut, I think, the presentations to, is 5 minutes okay with you? 5, 7, 6? We're in negotiation mode here. No, 7 is too much, I think. 6 minutes will be okay. 6 minutes and 3 minutes for the discussion. So we'll have paper 2, T. Nifong. Yes, okay, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Greetings to all. The title of this presentation is Green Finance, Green Innovation and Industrial Development in Africa. And it's a paper co-authored by Marilyn Edo and Nara Monkam. Thank you. To begin with the presentation, Africa's climate finance needs between 2020 and 2030 was estimated to be around $2.5 billion US. And by 2020, only about 12% of this amount was being mobilized. Equally, Africa is one of the world's poorest continents, and at the same time, facing several challenges as a result of underdevelopment in its human capital. And this has actually been a hindrance in terms of the implementation of green technologies and the affordability of these. It is in this respect that several studies have anticipated that at a comparative stage of development, Africa will have a larger proportion of tradable industries compared to the developed countries at an equal stage of development. This is evident by the fact that Africa's worth of tourism resources is still underutilized and has enormous growth potential, especially in the field of ecotourism, just to name a few. It is in this respect that we set out 2 specific objectives for this study. The first is to examine the effect of green finance on industrialization in Africa and to examine the extent to which green innovation can influence the effect of green finance on industrialization in Africa. 2 linear models were specified. In terms of result, green finance was found to have a positive effect on industrialization in Africa, whereas green innovation in terms of renewable energy has a negative effect on industrialization. And actually, green finance interacts with renewable energy technologies, producing positive net effects in all circumstances. The positive effect of green finance on industrialization can be explained here by the fact that green finance comes to supplement other sources of capital that exist in the economy, and that these can be used to be invested in industrial sectors, especially in green industrial projects. And the negative effect of green innovation through renewable energy actually is as a result of the fact that renewable energy is more expensive comparative with non-renewable sources of energy in Africa. And given that majority of the population are poor and the human capital is underdeveloped in actually implementing renewable energy technologies, renewable energy innovations tend to have negative influence on the industrial sector. Conclusively, the study concludes that green finance bolsters industrial development in Africa, and renewable energy has a negative impact on industrialization in Africa. Green finance interacts with renewable energy to produce positive net effects on industrialization. And as policy recommendation, it is recommended that the continent should multiply the sources of financing industrialization in the continent by exploring the private sector, other government sources, just to name a few. Equally, there is need on the education and capacity building, particularly within the rural communities, to foster small-scale innovation and prepare for the introduction of large-scale innovation renewable energy technologies in the continent. Another option is environmental taxation that can serve as a powerful tool to mobilize finance for climate action while promoting local manufacturing of renewable energy technologies, which can reduce cost and create jobs in the continent. And last but not the least, there is need in strengthening regional cooperation that can facilitate the sharing of best practices among the various regional organizations, and pooling of resources and coordinated efforts towards green industrialization. Thanks for your keen attention.
I think we really need to commend you for sticking for time. Thank you very much. I hope the rest of them will do the same. Well, what I suggest is that we'll go through paper 1 and 2, and then the discussions of the 2 papers, and then we move to paper 3 and 4, and one last because you are late. So I'm suggesting that, we have the next paper 3, industrialization, productive capacity, and indigeneity of fiscal space. Jacob, yes? Please, you have 6 minutes.
Could you please load paper 3 on the screen? Thank you. So, jumping right into the presentation, we can think of industrialization in a narrow sense. Manufacturing is share of GDP. And in that case, Africa has gone backwards, in fact, although some countries have improved. Or you can think of it as a broader term, productive capacity, using UNCTAD's productive capacity index. And if you see here, Eswatini and China have the same level of manufacturing, but China has a broader productive capacity base. Why? Productive capacity is multidimensional, and it's an ecosystem of private sector institutions, energy, ICT. So it's a much broader view of industrialization. There's a huge financing gap. We know about that for infrastructure, energy, ICT, and so forth. How will we finance industrialization in Africa? 2 approaches that we compare in this paper. Sound finance, which harks back to the gold standard age, which sees money as a private resource that has to be mobilized by the government. Therefore, fiscal space is absolute. Money comes exogenously to the system, and deficits are always bad. On the other hand, functional finance, money is a creature of the state. Fiscal space is relative. If you invest in productive capacity, you expand it, and your fiscal space is endogenous. I'll skip that. So we usually talk about twin deficits: trade deficit, fiscal deficit. In this approach, you have 3 balances. The sum of the private balance, public balance, and external balance must add up to 0. So what does that mean? That means that the public debt is actually equal to net private wealth. So a deficit in the public sector is a surplus in the private sector. And the US has learned that the hard way. It ran budget surpluses 13 times in history. All were followed by recessions. You can see here the dot-com recession, the Great Recession. China has ran deficits for 34 out of 38 years, and we know the good results. And even in Kenya, you compared the period of balanced budgets with low growth to public deficits. Now, not all deficits are good. productive deficits that are spent on increasing productive capacity can actually reduce the debt to GDP ratio because they cause growth faster than the level of deficit. So what about inflation? Well, there's two complaints. People think any public spending can increase inflation, but that assumes economy is fully employed and you have full productive capacity, which is not affected. But that's based on the monetarist theory where spending cannot increase output. But in fact, you have three scenarios. If you spend on raising your official salary, you'll have inflation and no growth. You spend on productive capacity, you'll have growth with stable inflation. And if your productive capacity reduces imports of food and energy and so forth, you might actually reduce inflation, which is passed through imports. So what we add to this literature, we created a monetary sovereignty index. Whether the country issues its own currency, whether it's flexible, how much food and fuel is imported, foreign exchange reserves, and external debt. And we rank the regions based on those two versions of monetary sovereignty. And Africa is not at the bottom. And in fact, Africa non-CFA is above Europe.
Sorry, Jacob, you have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, okay. So that means sub-Saharan Africa has more monetary space than the Eurozone because the Eurozone does not have its own currency. But Greece, for example, has a higher productive capacity than Gambia, although Gambia has a higher monetary space than Greece. For development and industrialization, you need both. So I'll skip to the part where we estimate unused fiscal space. We combine monetary sovereignty, productive capacity, unemployment, and inflation using principal component analysis. We derive the statistical weights. And again, sub-Saharan Africa non-CFA is the fourth, not the bottom. It has quite a bit of unused fiscal space. What can we do with that? You can invest in domestic production of food, energy, that would reduce imports, improve the balance of payments, and increase employment. For example, solar panels in Africa are only 2 cents more expensive than in China. So investing $18 million in local currency, even if it's deficit spending, could reduce energy imports. And if the reduction is greater than the deficit, you have a net benefit, lower inflation, higher growth. So why haven't we used that before? Answer 1, yes, Asia used it. In Africa, there's a history of colonial banking systems.
Unfortunately, I can't wait, actually. So, sorry, I think you need to wrap up.
Okay, I'll leave you with this visual summary. Thank you very much.
No, just 1 minute to wrap up.
Okay. So as I said, it's been tried in Asia and worked. In Africa, it hasn't been tried partly because of the history of the colonial banking systems. But even after decolonization, Bretton Woods institutions are adherents of sound finance. So what Adam said before the break about going away from the mainstream, perhaps we need to think differently about financing Africa. So to conclude, I'll leave you with this visual slide. Balancing the budget versus industrialization. They're not the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we listened to 2 interesting presentations. What I suggest is that we go through the first discussion, Nadia, and then Farzana, yes? And then we'll open it to just a few questions, and then the rest of the presentations, if I may. Yes, please, Nadia.
Good morning.
Nadia will be discussing the paper Green Finance, Green Innovation, and Industrial Development in Africa. Please keep to 3 minutes, please.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Good morning, and congratulations to the authors. That was a very bold idea, research idea they made, because the relationship between those 3 variables is not well established, even investigated in the literature. We have usually studies on the relationship between green innovation and industrialization, or green finance and industrialization. But the author took the stake to go and to investigate the relationship between the three variables. What I can say is like this is a very timely and important topic for the African countries, since we have been saying this morning we need to industrialize, but at the same time we cannot follow the same path as the industrialized country or emerging countries. The technical approach is well done, implemented. For that, congratulations. They use a GMM. That is normal approach, I would say, and the different steps has been followed. I would have maybe 2-3 remarks that can help them improve the paper. My first one will be on the proxies used. For instance, you use for green innovation, renewable energy consumption at the country level, like a global renewable energy consumption. In my opinion, this might not be the right proxy for green innovation. Usually we use the green patent as a proxy for green innovation. I know the data for the African countries for green patent might not be available, but you may want to check for and use maybe few countries compared to the number of countries you use now as renewable energy at the global level, continent, country level is not that much.
Nadia, sorry, I'll give you 1 minute.
Sure.
Just to summarize, and then I think you can send him the detailed comments by email. Thank you.
Here also green finance proxy, you might want to use another one than the mitigation related development finance, since mitigation finance towards African countries is very limited. Green bonds might be a good proxy. Another remark I would like to make here is like your posited that natural resources has a positive impact on industrialization, but this is not what is showed in the literature, and it's counterintuitive. So in summary, I would like maybe you to see if you can consider other a proxy that will reflect better the idea you want to develop, or maybe refocus the subject on, I don't know, renewable energy consumption and green industrialization instead of the party you took to consider the relationship between those three variables. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Can we move to Farzana, please? Or the paper 3, Industrialization, Productive Capacity, and the Indigeneity of Fiscal Space by Jacob. Farzana, you can keep to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. Congratulations, Jacob, for an excellent presentation. It was a pleasure to read your paper. It's a very thought-provoking paper in the sense that it's talking about the extent of fiscal space, the determinants of fiscal space as a function or as a component of productive capacities, industrialization, and monetary sovereignty. I found that the topic is very relevant for Africa, considering the constrained fiscal space we are seeing in the continent, and very timely in the sense that how best we can advise countries to really work on improving the fiscal space to invest in productive capacities and sustainable development. I would say that you have used an excellent literature review. There are some mentions of seminal work, very relevant papers. And the methodology for using principal component analysis as reducing dimensionality and incorporating the extent of waste, it was very reasonable and very intuitive and innovative. So congratulations on that. I would like to mention some of the aspects that you might consider in terms of improving the robustness of the findings. The first, and I think the most important one that came to my mind, is that you are talking about fiscal space and not in absolute term, in relative term, the difference between sound finance and functional finance. And in so doing, I think it will be important to look into the governance aspect. So for instance, I quote from the paper, the central propositions to this approach are that fiscal space is relative to macroeconomic conditions based on an endogenous view of money. It is dynamic in that increasing investment and changing institutional arrangements can increase fiscal space, and it unifies fiscal and monetary policies given the interactions between the fiscal agent and the monetary agent. I unquote. So, you know, you have actually mentioned this, that the fiscal arrangements and the quality of institutions will be critical. So in that, I think the taxonomy of your different concepts could consider the governance part of it, and instead of just using a binary choice of variables, yes or no, it might be worthwhile to incorporate the qualitative aspects with a range of spectrum of values, so that it can reflect on the qualitative part. One of the other suggestion for your kind consideration is
1 minute, Farzana, please.
Yes, is that you can have a separate section on literature review, which will also talk about the literature graph, and can use some other more recent work. And I will share the document, but in summary, a holistic approach incorporating fiscal space that is influenced by the effect and governance of public finance system.
This is not me, Farzana.
Management would significantly improve the robustness of the findings, and the paper will benefit from trimming down many examples given and to have a one straight line main messages. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
All right, thank you very much. Colleagues, may I just plead to you, I've just received a message from the organizers saying that by 2 o'clock, colleagues, you know, you need to go and take your DSA, the daily subsistence allowance. And I think we want to eat as well before. Bob Marley has a song called A Hungry Man is an Angry Man. We don't want angry men and women here. So my plea is to move to the others, and then we'll come. Just save your question to the end if you have time, if I may. Okay, so we now move to paper 4, between energy transition processes and the blocks of the energy balance. Yes, so we have the presenter. Can we have the presentations here? And if you can keep to the 6 minutes.
Second one.
So while we're waiting for the presentation of the scenarios, we'll have the presentation 4, and then paper 5, and then the discussion for 4, and then the discussion for 5. Then we'll go to 1. Good. Can we have presentation 4, please? Otherwise, the clock is not ticking. Yeah.
No problem,
Yes.
no problem.
Start now, 6 minutes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Asobi Kechku from University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and Department of Economics, University of Agriculture. This paper was co-authored by Asobra Chisum Norma. So we are trying to investigate to query between energy transition process and the blocks of the energy balances, which is sustainable for industrialization in Africa. So we'll just look at the background we'll be talking about, and let's look at the problem is energy has been the history of industrialization in Africa and globally. And Africa is also endowed with some energy resources. But the question is, why is it that industrialization in Africa, the low industrialization in Africa has always been blamed on low energy? So this study will try to look at both options, which is energy transition and at the same time, energy blocks. We'd like to look at the industrial insights in industrialization. As you can see, in Africa, only 10 countries was able to make it at the top ranking in industrialization index. And these 10 countries also have their index associated to the energy productive capacity. As you can see in that graph, all the 10 countries with higher industrialization ranking also has associated energy productive capacity. So that's to say that high energy productive capacity is also answers the question of industrialization in Africa. So we also try to look at renewable. Of course, renewable energy in Africa has come to stay, and the transition campaign is quite been deepening. And to our own, renewable energy consumption has as well increased, while solar is taking the lead. But the gap is between the transition and the blocks. What are we going? Where are we? What are we going to look at? So you can look, when we talk about energy blocks, we are looking at the three blocks that energy processes takes. We talk about the primary energy supply. We talk about the transformation block. We talk about the final energy consumption, which is available for the users. And most, especially the users, are classified into industries, manufacturer, transportation, and rest of them. So trying to do our analytical framework, we try to use a structural change model that try to vary labor from agriculture to industry. Maybe through that, we will understand why the energy blocks, or the question between energy blocks and energy transition. And we try to group all energy transition and blocks with Z. So now, if you talk about, we try also to have a very robust explanation about industrialization, looking at the value-added industrial product and the manufacturing added industrial product. Actually, the industrial product is quite encompassing. It contains that of the manufacturer classification, but the question is, most literature try to just use that of the manufacturer aspect, leaving out the larger scope. So we try to use the two scenarios. Let us know what is happening. And from the result, you can see that final energy consumption actually affects, has an increasing impact on, I'm done. Final energy consumption has an increasing impact on the industrial sector, likewise on manufacturing, and both in the short run and in the long run. You can see the other graph depicts the long run in the two models, and the other one depicts the short run. So at the same time, we are also looking at the primary energy supply shows an inverse relationship with industrial sector. This conforms with one of the panelists' statements that no primary product should leave African space without being value added. Most of these primary energy supply are exported in terms of their raw distance, so they are not actually adding anything to our industrial. At the same time, we also load the total energy, the transformation, fine. And the transformation is the process where energy actually go through. And you can see through the transformation process, we lose a lot of energy, which affect both the final energy consumption. So, and it shows a negative impact on the industrial output. So, following the evidence where this study tried to opine that energy transaction in all
I
forms.
suggest that you wrap up.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So policy implications, the flow of energy at the final energy consumption should be efficiently encouraged by energy policy for industries. Recall that the final energy consumption covers the final energy consumption as well as the non-energy use of energy products. That's to say that instead of campaigning for absolute renewable energy, that's energy transition, please, we should invest more in both fossil and renewable that can carry our industrialization as against the wide campaigned transition that the world is trying to. I don't think Africa is ripe for that. And at the same time, what happens at the transformation sector, there should be a limit in the export of primary products. With this, I think we should be looking at having a sustainable industrialization that can be driven by energy sector, having renewable energy and the fossil fuel running hand in hand instead of absolute or a sharp shift to renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I feel really bad when I cut short to see these are high quality papers, and I feel bad because I went for the governance section of ECA, and it's not, a secretarian, it's not really an ECA, but there's so many constraints, so I apologize, but so we need to move to the next presentation, paper 5. On the innovation capacity of Cameroonian small and medium enterprises for sustainable industrial development. Ali, 6 minutes, please.
Okay, hold on my best. Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the floor. The paper I'll be presenting here today is titled Enhancing the Innovation Capacity of Cameroonian SMEs for a Sustainable Industrial Transformation. Can we rely on Islamic finance? Now, the Cameroonian business landscape is dominated by small and medium-sized enterprises that represent about 99% of the total number of enterprises in the country. Despite this, these enterprises are considered unbankable by the conventional banking system that dominates Cameroonian financial system. This is so because, according to a report published by the National Institute of Statistics, only about 5% of Cameroonian small and medium-sized enterprises have access to formal bank credit. Now, the Islamic mode of financing was introduced in 2016 to serve as a means through which these SMEs can be financially included into the financial sector. This is so because this mode of finance is based on non-interest principle and profit and loss sharing, which are two important aspects of small and medium-sized enterprises financing. The objective of this study is to examine the effects of the Islamic mode of financing on the innovation capacity of Cameroonian small and medium-sized enterprises. To attain our objective, we used data collected from a sample of 1,358 small and medium-sized enterprises in 11 main cities of Cameroon. Out of this number, 9.8% are users of Islamic finance. We estimate a multivariate probit model in order to test this relationship. Our main results are presented as follows. The Islamic mode of financing positively and significantly explains process innovation, product innovation, and marketing innovation, while the effects on organizational innovation are non-significant. These results can be explained by the fact that the Islamic mode of financing provides credit on non-interest basis, which is key for small and medium-sized enterprises. This permits them to spend or to carry out research and development expenditure, which is vital for innovative activities. Equally, this mode of finance is based on the principle of partnership, where the lender and the borrower partners up to run a business. This permits the transfer of knowledge, which is vital for innovative activities. Equally, this mode of finance provides trade credit since it is asset-backed, and this trade credit helps to increase the range of products offered by small and medium-sized enterprises. We equally carried out some robustness analysis applying different measures of innovative activity, particularly research and development expenditure, patents, and a global innovation indicator. Results shows that the Islamic mode of financing explains positively and significantly research and development expenditure and global innovativeness, while this mode of finance negatively explains the probability that a small and medium-sized enterprises fights in for intellectual property rights. The negative effects on the probability to patent can be explained by the fact that the cost of patenting in the context of Cameroon is considered very high and out of the reach of most small and medium-sized enterprises. In conclusion, we uncover that the Islamic mode of financing positively and significantly contribute to the innovative capacity of Cameroonian small and medium-sized enterprises, be it at the level of product, process, or marketing. These results were equally confirmed by our robustness analysis. We have the following recommendations. First, policymakers are encouraged to put in place the necessary mechanisms for the promotion of the Islamic mode of financing, be it through the enacting of laws that ensure the creation of full-fledged banks and the creation of awareness campaigns to explain the advantages and the specificities of this mode of finance. It is equally recommended that other accompanying measures, such as a reduction in the cost of patenting, be implemented to make it within the reach of small and medium-sized enterprises. Lastly, small and medium-sized enterprises owners are encouraged to patronize the Islamic mode of financing as a means of ensuring the innovative capacity of their enterprises. Thank you so much for your keen attention.
Thank you for keeping the time. We have a presentation on it.
Okay, I'm presenting the paper on impact of ABIN intervention on ECOWAS member state industrialization. We are four on this paper, and I'm presenting the paper. But to wrap up on the presentation, let me switch into French, then I can go very quick and fast. Ok. Et on est sans savoir que l'industrialisation, le thème qui nous réunit aujourd'hui, c'est l'industrialisation. Et nous avons l'industrialisation, mais au même moment, nous avons les institutions de financement de développement. Et donc, il faudrait vraiment comprendre comment est-ce que les institutions de financement de développement arrivent à financer les activités économiques et, par ricochet, avoir un impact sur l'industrialisation. Donc, beaucoup d'études ont été menées sur la manière dont les institutions de financement de développement essaient de financer leurs activités afin d'avoir un impact significatif sur l'industrialisation. Donc, dans la théorie économique, nous avons essayé de subdiviser deux grandes périodes de la création des institutions de financement de développement. La première la première partie de création des institutions de financement de développement, c'est autour du 19e siècle dans les États, disons, dans les États développés ou bien dans les pays actuellement développés. Et dans la deuxième phase de création des institutions de financement de développement, c'est à partir de la moitié du 20e siècle. Et nous avons les exemples comme la création de la Banque de développement interaméricaine, la création de la Banque de développement de la Banque africaine de développement, la création de la Banque d'investissement et de développement de la CEDEAO. Donc, malgré, disons, les efforts fournis par les institutions de financement de développement pour pouvoir financer l'industrialisation, il y a une question centrale qui se pose aujourd'hui sur la contribution réelle des institutions de financement sur l'industrialisation. Donc, c'est ce qui nous a amené à mettre en place ce papier pour répondre à la question centrale de savoir quelle est ou bien sous quelles conditions les interventions de la BIDC ont un impact significatif sur l'industrialisation des États membres de la CEDEAO, étant donné que la BIDC est une institution qui couvre les 15 pays membres de la CEDEAO. Donc, l'objectif principal, c'est de faire quoi? C'est de déterminer les conditions sous lesquelles les interventions de la BIDC ont un impact significatif sur l'industrialisation des États membres de la CEDEAO. Et nous fixons deux hypothèses. La première hypothèse, c'est qu'une augmentation des décaissements de la BIDC en faveur du secteur industriel va améliorer l'industrialisation des États membres de la CEDEAO. Et la deuxième hypothèse, c'est de pouvoir montrer étant donné que l'électricité est un intrant très important, ou bien l'accès à l'énergie est un intrant très important dans l'industrialisation et qu'aucune activité économique ne peut tenir sans l'électricité. Donc, nous émettons la deuxième hypothèse pour montrer qu'il existe une relation linéaire entre l'accès à l'électricité et puis l'industrialisation. OK. En termes de méthodologie, nous utilisons un modèle autorégressif développé par Rudman en 2009 et puis ses prédécesseurs. Donc, nous utilisons un GMM système pour pouvoir estimer notre modèle. En termes de résultats, nous remarquons que une fois que nous contrôlons une fois que nous contrôlons l'épargne disponible dans la sous-région, nous remarquons que les interventions de la BIDC ont un impact significatif sur l'industrialisation des États membres de la CEDEAO. Et ceci s'explique par le fait que depuis 2006, la banque est allée sur le marché régional de l'UEMOA pour pouvoir mobiliser assez de ressources.
I suggest that the group close the discussion.
OK. Donc, comme je le disais, nous avons trouvé que les interventions de la BIDC ont un impact significatif, mais on se pose la question de savoir si la BIDC devait augmenter ses interventions en faveur du secteur industriel. Ces augmentations devaient se faire jusqu'à quel moment? Donc, on a fait des simulations d'augmentation des décaissements de la BIDC en faveur du secteur industriel. Et nous trouvons que une augmentation de 10% des interventions de la BIDC en faveur du secteur industriel a un impact positif avec un effet marginal très conséquent. OK. Donc, en termes pour pouvoir tester la deuxième hypothèse sur la relation positive qui existait entre l'industrialisation. Donc, nous trouvons qu'il existe une relation positive et significative entre l'accès à l'électricité et l'industrialisation. OK. En termes de conclusion, nous concluons que la BIDC devait augmenter ses interventions de 10% et que l'investissement dans la sous-région a un impact positif sur l'industrialisation et que, en dernière position, et la BIDC devrait faire quoi? La BIDC devrait augmenter ses interventions en faveur du secteur, en faveur de l'accès à l'électricité pour augmenter l'industrialisation de la région. OK, je vous remercie.
So I have three discussants. Johannes, we'll start with you. Can I cut your time from 3 to 2, please?
Okay, thank you very much. I know we're tight on time. I'll try to say my discussion of the paper titled Between Energy Transition Processes and Blocks of Energy Balance, which one for industrialization in Africa? There are two authors to this paper. Both of them have the same last name, Asokwa. I don't know if you are siblings or it's just accidental. It's a common name, so it's accidental. Okay. In terms of importance of the paper, I found it to be quite interesting. In a sense, there is a wealth of research prior to this focusing on final energy consumption and industrial performance or economic performance. We have this 80s, 90s, and 2000s extensive literature, including in the context of Africa. Where this particular study is contextualized and adds value, in my view, is expanding the discussion about energy, understanding the complexity of the system, instead of looking at only final energy consumption in industry, but looking at total energy supply, storage, transition, renewable energy. It kind of introduced a more complex picture in how all of that is related to a measure of industrial performance, which we'll come back to. So in that sense, I think it has its place in the literature, and I thought it was a good contribution. It is, in terms of methodology, I thought it was contextualized within the growth literature, which is a standard approach to treat this kind of issues, starting with an aggregate production function, a Cobb-Douglas type of production function, and converting it into a growth type econometric model. So I thought that approach follows the standard approach in the literature. In that sense, it is less controversial. However, the way they estimated their econometric model was quite interesting. The same approach I heard from the other papers using GMM efficient estimator.
Johannes, I don't want FDB and UNDP colleague to say that, I'll give more time to
I'll take 1 minute.
colleagues.
I'll go straight to the point.
Yeah,
okay, thanks. I have shared a 2-page summary of this discussion separately via email, but let me go straight to the suggestions. One is to justify the selection of what it means to be industrialization. I think your definition slightly differs to some of the definitions we have heard. It expanded the scope. I think it would be very good to justify why that particular definition of industrialization is particularly useful. One thing was very peculiar. You showed negative relationship between total primary energy consumption and industrialization. Even though it seems peculiar, you have to separate, because a big bulk of primary energy supply in Africa, like 90%, is biomass, which is not directly consumed in industrial activities. I wonder if we can just do electricity generation and see if that peculiarity is removed. Further suggestion, you touched upon energy trade a little bit in the paper. That's a very, very interesting area. If you can look at regional energy exchange and energy trade in direct implication to economic performance, including industrialization, perhaps you can look at it in the context of a follow-up new paper. But congratulations and good paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johannes. Thanks a lot. So we'll go to paper 5, Mozonelli.
Congratulations to Ali and colleagues on this interesting paper. And one, I think on the importance of paper, I think in the morning we were talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area and how it needs to be propelled by industrialization in the continent. And through industrialization, in order to be an inclusive one, we need to include SMEs, where most of the poorer members of our society are making a living. But these SMEs are normally hindered their progress by lack of finance. And this is where the paper becomes really important. So to position the paper in the context of African development, I think it is very clear in that sense. On the second point, the paper analyzes the effects of Islamic banking on innovation capacity, especially at the level of enterprises. When I Googled to try to ascertain the truthfulness of this, I found only the Islamic banking and SMEs are connected mostly on diversification and employment creation. So I think that the position of the paper in the literature is well-founded and quite innovative. So congrats to the authors. On the methodology, I think it was brave for them to try to reach out to as many people as they can. I mean, 1,058 was quite a large number, and 88% responded. My experience in this regard is that the SMEs normally do not like these questionnaires because they think they take too much time, they don't benefit. So congrats on that response rate that is close to 90%. Fourthly, on the pertinence, correctness.
May I suggest that you conclude very quickly and then you send the rest of your comments by email. I'm really sorry because it's 1:28 now. And we have okay. So can you conclude, please?
Yes, on those methods, I want the authors to kind of define things, not take them for granted, such as, for example, what is process innovation? What is product innovation? So you can define those a little bit more and also elaborate a little bit on your findings, such as the one on patents. I think that one was clear, but on other findings, it's not clear. And I fully agree with the conclusions, and especially in countries where, for example, the Islamic banking is not yet have a track record. I think that regulatory frameworks and supervisory processes and standard need to be fully formed and implemented. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So can we finally move to Mahmoudou now?
Yes, quickly. Thank you very much. Let me go in French quickly. Merci, félicitations pour cet article qui analyse l'impact de la contribution de la BIDC sur le financement de l'industrialisation. Je pense que c'est un sujet d'actualité au regard du gap de financement en général, des infrastructures en général et des infrastructures pour l'industrialisation en particulier en Afrique de l'Ouest, un sujet assez pertinent. Nous avons apprécié effectivement la méthodologie utilisée, la méthode, le GMM, avec les auteurs ont fait l'effort d'explorer au maximum, tout à fait en analysant, en faisant des régressions de court terme, des régressions de long terme, et surtout en faisant aussi des régressions d'interaction pour voir un peu quelle interaction entre les différents variables, parce que c'est une analyse appliquée pour pouvoir recommander à la CEDEAO d'investissement. Et ils ont utilisé un panel dynamique avec des instruments appropriés. Donc, je pense que ça permet effectivement, étant donné que nous faisons dans le contexte des données financières qui sont assez volatiles, mais aussi également qui ont des séries assez courtes. Donc là, c'est ce que je voulais préciser dans la qualité du document. Mais les résultats, je vais directement, hein, mais ça n'en est pas maximum la qualité du document. Ce qu'il faut dire, l'indicateur principal, qui est le taux, les 10%.
The results and conclusions as well, please, in half a minute.
Yes. L'accroissement des 10% des investissements de la BIDC, la Banque islamique de la banque de la CEDEAO, la pertinence, en fait, quand on regarde sur le terrain, le déficit d'investissement au niveau de l'industriel avec les 10%, je pense que ça mérite d'être... Parce que j'ai regardé rapidement les travaux. Entre 2005 et 2015, en Afrique de l'Ouest, les investissements à l'endroit du secteur industriel ont augmenté de 18% en moyenne sur la période. Donc, si la BIDC, voilà, la Banque islamique est à 10%, c'est de savoir maintenant, et il conseille que de l'excédent à 10%, c'est l'optimum. Et les 20%, c'est maintenant, la question que je me pose, c'est de savoir, ces 10% et le reste va être injecté dans d'autres secteurs. Mais est-ce qu'ils ont analysé pour voir un peu quelle est l'efficacité? Peut-être que les 10%, l'excès des 10% peut être lié à l'efficacité de l'investissement, aux capacités des pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest à absorber l'excédent de l'investissement, parce que les 10%, et quelle est la dynamique temporelle de ça? Pour l'énergie, je pense que l'indicateur utilisé, qui est le taux d'accès à l'énergie, va causer problème, parce que vous analysez l'impact sur l'industrialisation. L'énergie, il y a l'énergie tension moyenne qui est utilisée pour les ménages, les tensions et haute tension utilisées pour les grosses entreprises, pour l'industrie. Donc, je pense que vous devez utiliser l'offre ou la production d'énergie.
Mahmoudou, can we leave it with this question?
Donc, ça, c'est... Yes,
and then leave.
Yes, thank you. I've shared my contribution and my note on that. Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor 2 or 3 if they have burning questions. to the presenters. The presenters, you don't have to answer. You just take it and you say, well noted.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Pradeep Mehta. I head a global public policy group called CUTS International. There is one question was raised by two different presenters on the impact of renewable energy and industrialization. The first one spoke that it goes against industrialization, while the second one a little more nuanced position on that. Can they please clarify it as to what do they mean that it will go against industry, or will it favor industry? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we had a negative effect of renewable energy consumption on industrialization. And that can be explained by the fact that in Africa, renewable energy is comparatively more expensive compared to non-renewable energy sources. And adopting renewable energy sources of energy, first of all, will lead to increase in the cost of production for the industries, and will equally lead to increase in the general price levels in the economy, and demand will fall, and the industrial value added would normally decrease. So that is the logic we justified.
Okay. About renewable energy, in our energy transition, we try to proceed the process using renewable energy consumption. We try to use the capacity storage of energy, renewable energy. We also try to use the generation capacity to proceed renewable energy transition. So in all, they were not positively or significantly influencing industrialization. But what's the simple reason? Number one is because of the cost. Another two, the transition process has a lot of processes to undergo, technology-wise, even knowledge-wise, smart adaptation. You know, when you say you are transiting, then how smart is it for people to assess? Then if we look at the energy security, we're talking about the affordability, accessibility, acceptability. So to what extent are we doing in these three major indicators? We are still not doing fine. That doesn't mean that renewable energy is not potential, does not have the potential, but for now, the weight at which it throws into industrialization is not yet significant. So we cannot adopt absolute energy transition at the expense of what we trying to get. That's why we say it's better to take the two in hand, fossil and renewable energy. We'll get there where our capacity can carry it. Thank you.
Thank you.